Welcome to the Armchair Coaching Podcast. If you are viewing this on YouTube, do us a huge favor and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button down below. And if you would like to listen to this on podcast form, we are available on the Anchor app. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms. I will link those in the description below. We have yet another great guest today, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce him to you guys. So this coach served a stint as the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. I did say that correctly, right? Gallaudet? All right. Uh, Also as the assistant athletic director and head coach at Central Florida Christian Academy in Orlando, Florida. Head coach of John Handley High School in Winchester, Virginia, not too far from where I am now. And he is also now the head coach at the Apprentice School in Newport News, Virginia. I'd like to welcome you guys to Coach John Davis. Thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely, Coach. I appreciate you having me. This is where we gotta get the little sound effects button and everybody go.
Yeah, I'm not as technologically apt as some of the other guys, but I'm learning, so maybe I can get it done for this one. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it because I'm excited for this one today. Coach, I am fascinated by every coach's story, like their background. So could you, and take as much time as you need, could you tell us your coaching journey? Basically, how did you end up where you are today?
Absolutely, and I appreciate you asking me that question. I think my answer probably is a little different than the typical college football head football coach. I got my start in semi-pro. When I finished my career at Liberty University, I was done with the game as a player, but I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with myself. So I was working as a retail store manager, and I picked up and I was defensive coordinator for a semi-pro team. I was younger than most of the guys that were playing at that time, and we had some really good years. I was really, really proud of what we were able to accomplish, and a lot of those guys were saying, "Man, you should get us a run full time." I was working then, I did that for 2 years, and I was working at Liberty University as an admissions counselor, kicking it around in my head if I should do it or not. And a job came open at Gallaudet University in D.C. I said, well, that's not too far. Let's go check it out. At the time, I knew it was a deaf school. I didn't know what I was in for. I had no experience with American Sign Language. Didn't know if I was going to be able to communicate well. I had no clue what I was in for. I knew they were really bad in football, and I felt like that probably was going to give me an opportunity to get in the door. I interviewed for a grad assistant job in 2007 spring. Got it. Was excited about potentially, continuing my education while also getting to coach football. Knowing that I had a small window for error. I had already had 2 kids. I was leaving a wife and 2 kids at home. I said, we're going to make this work. We're going to give it a real run, and I'm going to put everything I got into it. I'm very grateful. Ed Hoddle was who hired me at Gallaudet. He's now the head football coach at Stevenson University out in Baltimore, doing a great job there. He gave me my first shot. I was the secondary coach, and we were a small staff, so I learned a lot on the fly. He's a tough guy to work for, but he made sure that all of my rough edges from not coming from that, high school, college background, he made sure that I roughed those out very quickly. That first season, we were still bad. It was our first year back in Division III football, and we went 2-8, and we were horrible. But I seen a lot of things started to click, and I went out and I interviewed for about 3 jobs that winter, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to stay a grad assistant. And Gallaudet, they liked me so much at the time that they created a full-time position for me. I didn't have to interview. There were no other candidates. It was just, this is John, you've done such a great job in your 6 months. Please stay. And I was elated. I owe a lot of my early career to that. Fast forward, he's up for the job at Stevenson University. It's me and our offensive coordinator, Chuck Goldstein, who's quite a few years older than me. I hope he's listening to this. Few years older than me. We used to have good conversations down in the assistant coach's office about what would happen if and when Ed got this job. We knew he was going to get it from the start. I mean, it just felt right. And we were having a good year. That second year, we went 6-4. Runner-up in the conference. We had the biggest turnaround in Division III football. So I knew he was going to have a shot at that job. And we both kind of like where we were at the time. And I told him that if he decided to be the head coach, and I would back him and I would stay. He immediately made me an assistant head coach, and that was probably the best thing that happened to my career. Because at that time, I got to go be a defensive coordinator with a head coach that was completely hands-off. So I got a chance to really put in a defense from scratch from my own brainchild. So I got a chance to see the nuances and, get an opportunity to really get a feel for what I wanted to do as a coordinator without having any eyes over my shoulder. It was, what are we doing this week? Okay, coach, I trust you. And, man, we put some great defenses together during that time. While I was there, we ended up winning the conference championship, going to the NCAA playoffs for the first time in school history. I was named the Division III Assistant Football Coach of the Year while I was there. We had 5 years where we were in the top 25 in Division III for defense. And, that was, for a school like Gallaudet, that was something special. And we really were able to capture some lightning in a bottle. I wanted the job at the Apprentice School. I found out about the Apprentice School when we beat them 2 years in a row in 09 and 10. And I said, man, a school that doesn't have a tuition, guys get paid, have degree opportunities, there is no financial aid office. I was really fascinated by that because one of my jobs at Gallaudet, I was the guy who was responsible for going into financial aid at the end of the year and saying, hey, here's this young man, here's Darrin, he's done a great job, he's got all A's and B's, he's about $5,000 short, what's going to happen to him? And that really takes a toll on you after 8 years. Seeing some guys just not be able to afford school. So having that opportunity was amazing. I did not get the apprentice job the first time I interviewed for it. I was a finalist for 3 small college jobs. I was number 2 for 3 in 2013. And it was just, I knew it was time for me to go. I did everything I could potentially do at Gallaudet. Like I said, we were top 25. We went 2-8 my last year, but we finished 21st in Division III in defense. Look it up. We had a phenomenal year. There was nothing else left for me to prove. I was ready to be a head coach. Thankfully, I got an opportunity to go down to Central Florida Christian Academy. Really enjoyed my time there. Made the playoffs, went 7-2. Made the playoffs there. Had an opportunity to get back home. The principal at John Handley High School was a PE instructor when I was in high school at EC Glass in Lynchburg, Virginia. And once I got an opportunity to get in the room with him, I knew it was going to be a good fit. They were coming off 0-10, and I've kind of started to build myself as the guy that you can bring in when you've got a bad program, and he'll kind of turn it around. And I got to hire some really good coaches. We ended up going 4-6 my second year, 1 game out of playoff contention. When the Apprentice School came open again, I let everybody know that I was going to re-interview, and this time I was able to lock it down. So going into my 3rd year, my first year, we had to play very, very bad schedule, but we ended up doing pretty well, won 9 games that year. And then last year, playing all varsity teams, I won 6 games, which was the first varsity winning season since 2007 at the Apprentice School. So we're in the driver's seat. We've been doing some really good things. And before I let you ask your next question, just because it's me, I got to make sure that I say, I'm really grateful to my full-time staff, my guys that I got at Apprentice School. That's Vince Brown. That's my assistant head football coach. Charlie Skolaski is my offensive coordinator. And Big Elton Brown is my recruiting coordinator, offensive line coach.
All right. My head coach that I work for right now, he has this saying that when we do good, it's the assistant coaches and the players who did good. When we do bad, it's my fault. So you seem to have the very same philosophy with that too. So
absolutely.
So on to the next question. So the Apprentice School, not really affiliated with the NCAA or NAIA. So how does like scheduling work? Who do you guys play, and what has that experience been like for you?
We are technically we live in that word when you say affiliated. We are affiliated with the NCAA. We're accountable NCAA game for Division III, Division II, and FCS. So we can play and live in any of those worlds. We're also accountable game for the NAIA. So we've played a little bit of everybody since I've been here. We played JUCO. We went out to Quincy University Division II, and we played them in Quincy, Illinois last season. We've played prep schools. We played, we kind of get an opportunity to be the Pirates of college football, with the hope being that we get to a point where we're stable enough that we can, really develop some long-term scheduling relationships with some schools that are closer and here in Virginia. But I mean, we get to kind of say we were the Pirates of college football. When I took over my first team meeting, I tell this story, nobody believes me now, but my first team meeting, when I was introduced as the head coach, there were 16 bodies in the room. So that first year, we knew we were going to be in some trouble, and we scheduled accordingly. I mean, we scheduled with the thought being we were only going to have 30, maybe 40 guys. We ended up with a few more, but, we did really well, gave some guys some scares, played Ferrum tight, played Southern Virginia tight, and then, like I said, year 2, we won 6 varsity games, including 4 Division III games, and it's a big deal for the Apprentice School, who we've kind of been down for a while.
Yeah, I went to Bridgewater College, so you're probably familiar with that. And we played. It was my freshman year. I was redshirted because of injury. And so I was helping out with film and all that kind of stuff. And we actually went to the Apprentice School. I think it might have been our first game. I don't think it was a scrimmage. I'm pretty sure it was a real game. It's been a while. um, but I learned a little bit more about it because I was like, as a freshman in college, I was like, I've never heard of the Apprentice School before. And so I looked into it a little bit after seeing the schedule, and I was impressed with, the different things that the website was saying. And I was very impressed with the field conditions and your facilities, especially for how small you guys are. And that was pretty impressive for me. And I wish I had known about the Apprentice School before I'd ever applied for college, and I might have actually looked into it. Now, kind of getting into a little bit more of a bigger scope here with this next question, a little bit more importance, especially nowadays. As an African-American head coach, what kind of challenges do you face, and what kind of challenges have you faced in the past that other people might not be as familiar with?
This was a great question, and I'm really appreciative of you being secure enough in what it is you're trying to do with your media to ask this question. I've been asked this question a couple of times, and I've really changed and dictated the answer based on the audience. But I feel like now is the time where I can be honest and forthright and forthcoming with this. I've had some experiences as an African American head coach that's difficult. Number one is the sheer lack of opportunity, and I'm gonna just be honest with you. I was able to run the numbers for Division III last year. I was sickened by the small number of coordinator opportunities, offensive coordinators, head coaching opportunities. At 16 right now out of 256 schools. So I mean, it's a very, very limited number of schools that are going to hire an African-American head coach, if we're just being honest. Now, the second piece of that I want to make sure that everybody understands is the hiring process for me. And like I told you, I was a finalist for 3 jobs in 2013. I've interviewed for various jobs since I've been out. On hiring committees, outside of the person that has been put there as the diversity person on the hiring committee, I very rarely encountered any other minorities on the committee itself, whereas it was structured with vice president, athletic director, et cetera, somebody who's sitting in a position where they're going to have a loud voice on that hiring committee. It's been very few. Now, what I've encountered is the diversity person on the committee, and that's what a lot of people, I don't think they understand that part of it. It's who is making the decision. And I say this with all honesty, people are going to gravitate towards people they feel most comfortable with. So if my peer group and the people that I'm most comfortable with, the people I see every day, the people in my neighborhood, if I don't reflect that, or if another minority doesn't reflect that, then they kind of start that process one leg back. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece that I cannot understate, and I hear this from other head coaches all the time, is my success or my failures is going to be indicative of a whole group of coaches behind me. So whereas I was the very first black head football coach at John Handley High School, I was the first black head football coach of any school in that area. So my success or how I carried myself is going to have a heavy burden on the next African American that wants to work at Handley or Warren County or Millbrook or any of those schools in that circle. And that's a heavy crown to have to hold on to during this process, because I have to think about that. If I don't have success at the Apprentice School, the likelihood of them following me with another African American head coach is very, very slim. That's just the realities of it. The other thing that I want to make sure I kind of hit on, but I think it's hit or miss based on the level, is when you talk about what your staff makeup is. As an African-American head football coach, I think if you really do the research, and I have, a lot of them, they feel obligated to make sure that they have a white male as an offensive or defensive coordinator to balance out the staff demographic. It is very, very seldom that a black head football coach is able to hire both a black offensive coordinator and a black defensive coordinator. In fact, in those 16 instances in Division III, it's only one school where they have a black offensive coordinator, black defensive coordinator, and a black head coach. So it's that uncommon because it turns into a perception thing. What is the perception of your staff makeup? So I think that's one big challenge. Those things are going to be scrutinized. And then fourthly, and I think this is understated too, when I talk to my guys as I'm recruiting them, a lot of times I'm the first black football coach a lot of them have ever had. Definitely the first black head coach. So there is some apprehension from parents. There's some apprehension from head coaches at other high schools from sending their students to places where they may not be as familiar with. So that's just another piece. And as a young man, if this is the first black head football coach that they've had, I carry the burden for that experience as well, because they're going to go off into the world and they're going to have hopefully high-paying jobs where it's going to put them in a seat. And I want to make sure that anybody who's been around them or who's insulated them has portrayed, African Americans or has portrayed them in a light that will make them feel comfortable hiring them or bringing them close to them. So, it's an important burden to carry. And you would think about it in 2020, 2021, it really shouldn't even be a question that we have to discuss, but it is. It's a huge undertaking right now, one that I don't take lightly, and I think it's extremely important that we acknowledge it and we keep supporting each other.
Right. And you're right. It does keep coming up every single year. And I think the biggest fear, obviously, is the NFL. You see it every single year because there's going to be a lot of firings in the NFL because it's a business. And it always seems that, to put it bluntly, it always seems like it's an unknown white guy who ends up getting the job, or they just keep recycling the same head coaches over and over. And like one gets fired somewhere else, they hire him somewhere else. And it's just like, I don't understand, like, what's the hiring process like? Because I'm not in the room. I don't know what's going on. I'm not an NFL owner. I'm not a college president who's making these hiring decisions. So I don't know what's going on there. And it seems to me like there's definitely a problem.
Yeah,
And I feel totally secure saying that as a white coach. I'm saying there's a problem. There needs to be more black leadership on the field. You know what I mean? And
as a black coach, we always have to fight with the stigma. Okay, was I the minority interviewed? So I might have been told I was a finalist, but we know now because of that, because they all want to make sure that they've interviewed at least one minority for the position. So now you have to think to yourself, okay, do I really have a legitimate opportunity to land this job, or was I the minority interview? And in either case, you still want to take the interview. You still want to do a great job, because those people may leave and they remember, okay, well, we did get a chance to interview him and he was great last time. So that's tough. And, I ask that same question to, head coaches that I look up to when I get an opportunity to get them into the room. And again, you're talking about guys who have 40-year careers, 30, 40-year careers, and they still struggle with that piece of it too.
So the next question is, what can other coaches, and especially coaches like me, other white coaches, what could we do to help promote more diversity within the coaching community? And I'm not a head coach, but what could someone like me or a white head coach or someone higher up do to help promote more diversity?
I think the biggest thing is pouring into young guys who you see may have the potential to be football coaches. I didn't my whole college career. I mean, it was on my birthday on the 31st, and always got a story with something. One of our best football players when I was at Liberty University sent me a message, over Twitter saying, man, I knew he was going to grow up to be a football coach because he was coaching me and I was a senior, he was a freshman. Like, I always had a high IQ when it came to X's and O's in football, but nobody from any of my coaching staffs in college ever looked at me and said, okay, you might have the potential to do this. Here's what that route looks like. I think a big piece of it is just taking those guys who show a high football IQ, or you see somebody who you say, okay, he may end up being a Division III football player. Let's make sure he understands what this route could be, and just kind of helping guide some people on that road. Because I did have, there's some teammates of mine who were made, student coaches, who were given opportunities to go do some things to kind of, help their journey in coaching along. And I look back on that and I say, man, I was like an on-the-field coach during my whole time I was there, but I didn't get any of those opportunities. And maybe they thought to themselves, well, he's not a coaching major. He's here for journalism, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of excuses at that point. You seen I had a high IQ and nobody ever talked to you about it, then I think that's the biggest piece. And the second thing is give somebody – sometimes you got to give a guy an opportunity that you don't know. Again, coaching circles run deep, and that's the nature of this business. I personally am a horrible – and if I had a chance to go back and start my 12-year career over again, I would start doing a lot better job of networking and shaking hands and kissing babies. But that's just not how I was raised. We probably could do a whole nother podcast just on what that side of the business is supposed to look like. But I never bought into that. I always bought into do the best job where you're at and somebody will notice it. It's not always true. I think a lot of times you got to give somebody an opportunity who you may not know, and then be willing to bring them along, especially if it's a young coach. I've been a part of a lot of hiring committees. I've been a part of a lot of places where we've had to make the hiring decisions, and sometimes I've went with people I don't know just because they're going to make me a better coach, but also it gives me an opportunity to pour into them. So I like to say, none of the guys that I've brought in that I've ever coached ever feel like they didn't get an opportunity to get coached up along their journey. I know you had Will Thompson on the podcast earlier. He had an opportunity to work for me. He and we didn't work together prior to those years at Handley, but I knew he was a good football coach. So I feel like if I can do that and I can reach down and get a white guy, you should be able to reach down and do the same thing with an African-American if everything is the same. I'm not telling you to jump out and go do something for somebody who may not be as qualified. But I'm saying if everything is even, give an African-American an opportunity, or pour more into that side. If you see that that's an issue right now, especially in your area, if you're a high school coach, start pouring more into those guys. Get them involved in the youth coaching. Check on them. Start a small network. Like, if you really want to see tangible change and you want to be a part of it, start pouring into them. Take them to clinics with you. Bring them on the sideline with you. Start raising them up so that they can get that experience, so that maybe one day they can be a varsity coach. Maybe one day they can be a college assistant.
All right. Great answer. So this is one that I ask pretty much everybody, and I've been really researching a lot about leadership and culture and philosophy. So could you describe for us your kind of coaching philosophies and your leadership styles, and where do you think that these came from?
Okay, my coaching philosophy, my leadership style can be summed up in pretty much 2 words, and that's people first. I personally believe that football can be as simple as you make it. It can be as complicated as you make it. But at the end of the day, if you're in this thing for the right reasons, then it's about the people. It's not so much about the X's and O's and the output as it is the input, and the input being us. What do you input? So people first is my coaching philosophy. So what does that mean? I'll give you a concrete example. At one point when I was at Gallaudet, the school's first ever, we had a SAC champion for NCAA football, all divisions. At that, he was a sophomore. He didn't know very much football. I couldn't teach him how to drop to a flat. I couldn't teach him how to cover a hip. I couldn't teach him how to drop to a hook to a curl. He was just a naturally effective pass rusher. So as a freshman, he didn't play much because I didn't know I didn't know how. I was still young as a coach. Didn't know how to use him. I didn't connect with him. Once I got an opportunity to connect with him, I said, okay, why would we keep probably our most dynamic player off the field because he can't drop to a hook to curl? If he can rush the passer, he can get us at that season, he got us 16 sacks. If he gets you 16 sacks, why would you not play him? So we adjusted the scheme to fit him. So we put a backer behind him, and the backer's only job was to make him right. Those two guys, they were not a part of the rest of the scheme. His job was to make him right in the run fits, make him right in the passing game. And that worked out for us. And because of that, and that was earlier in my career, because of that, that made me understand that you've got to try to make sure that you make football fit your guys. So I've been able to run a lot of different schemes and have some success just being able to be adaptable and flexible because I always come back to people first. So that really, when you talk about discipline, when you talk about the setting of your program, at the end of the day, it's people first. It's not flashy equipment. Nothing comes before the people. So what that's allowed us to do, and that permeates through our program, it allows us to really hone in on small things like taking care of our guys. And that is where we've gotten our success from. So my leadership style, I'm a huge delegator. Because I had that autonomy and I know what that did to me as a football coach, I know why I was able to grow. I was able to make mistakes without the feel like somebody was going to be over my shoulder. I give our guys that same autonomy. I still call a good bit of the defense here. Been calling a good bit of the defense my whole career because I feel like that's what got me in the chair. So I haven't felt like I'm able to get that. I've only been a head coach for 6 seasons. So I feel like I'm not been able to get away from that yet, but I will at some point. And the biggest thing is to make sure that you get guys around you and you trust them. And as a head coach, you got to coach your coaches. I mean, that's the biggest piece. I'm not going to, like when we get into our staff meetings, that's where we'll make corrections. That's where I'll tell you, okay, maybe we need to try this, try that. But they get the tone from me. And the tone's going to always be the guys come before us because at the end of the day, without them, we don't have a program. They need to feel valued. And so my philosophy, my leadership style can kind of be summed up with people first. And I get that from all of the head coaches I've had an opportunity to work with and work for. And again, it's trial and error. You try to, I'm a huge, I grew up a huge James Franklin fan. I followed him since he was at Maryland as offensive coordinator. If there was somebody you asked me today, you say, man, coach, who you want to be like? I want to be like James Franklin. And one of the things he does a great job of is you see him hugging his guys. You see him really involved in the outside of football piece. And seeing him do that while he was at Maryland, seeing him do it while he was at Vandy, that really rubbed off on me. And it said, okay, you don't have to do it like anybody else, John. You can do it yourself. And I'm a big hugger. People say I look mean on camera, but like I'm a big hug guy. I like to hug you and love on you, put my arms around you. So, that permeates through our program. So I don't ask coaches to do anything that they're not comfortable with. But the number one thing is our guys will come first. And we don't ever come into the room and say, this guy can't do that, this guy can't do that, because I'm going to say, find something he can do, and let's do that. And because I've had success at every level, acting that way and kind of coaching that way, then that's going to continue.
All right. Now, I know some of my listeners are probably going to riot if I don't ask this question because everybody wants to know X's and O's. You can talk offense if you want, but I know that you're a defensive guy. So what schemes do you enjoy the most? What do you believe in the most, and why?
That's a loaded question. All right. So I'm gonna give you a little bit now. Now, as a defensive coordinator, the offenses that I enjoy the most, I really, really love teams that are clean with the triple option. That, I mean, I when I was working at Gallaudet, that's what we ran on offense. When we were working it and we had a couple pieces, man, it was beautiful to watch. It's nice sitting on the sideline for 6-7 minutes at a time when the drives are going. I really, really enjoy that. But now that I've gotten a little older, I'm really, really, really enjoying the up-tempo spread option teams. And we're a spread option team on offense. I like to say we're triple option, just not under center. We do a lot of bubbles. We get the ball to the people in space. We've had games where we've threw for 300. We've had games where we've rushed for 300. It just depends on what's working, and we got a little bit of both of those. And our offensive coordinator, Coach Skolasky, does a great job of getting us in position. But me personally, my personal opinion, if you give me a good, I'll sit down, I'll watch triple option, wing T, single wing. I'll watch that stuff all day because if you get the right pieces, it's unstoppable. And it's just fun to watch. And I know some people are listening, probably like, man, what is Coach talking about? I hate that stuff. It's boring. But me, man, if you can run the football and you got a couple hogs up front that just like putting their nose down, there ain't nothing like feeling comfortable on 4th and 2, knowing, okay, we can run power, we can run dive triple, and we'll get 3 yards. I don't care who we're playing against. That's a good feeling to have. Defensively, I've been an odd stat guy for the majority of my career. Ed was our defensive coordinator my first year at Gallaudet, and he taught me the 4-man front. Loved it. Always felt like, in my mind, you need to have either a really good 1 technique or a really good 3 technique to make it work. You got to have one of those 2 pieces to make it work up front. So once I had an opportunity to call it, we went straight to an odd front because I'm an odd 50 slant guy at heart. So we're going to line up in zeros and 2 4s, and we're going to move around a lot and force you to get into your gap schemes. I feel like I can take away a lot of what you want to do offensively with our movement up front. So, I used to call myself the blitz guru back in my early Twitter days. That was my Twitter handle, because if you broke us down, we would blitz somewhere between 70 to 75% every game, but you had to pick us out. So as long as I had a couple corners that could hold an island, you had to come pick us out. And what we were able to do was just kind of, what I realized is I can dictate the game to you a whole lot better on defense if I'm not vanilla and I'm giving you a different look. So offensively, I know I'm going to get the gap schemes. I know I'm going to take away your zone game. So let's go with the gap schemes, and then I can kind of cut down on what we need to prepare for during the week. And I've always been a big fan of running a lot of varied coverages. I'm a big man, cover 2, cover 3 guy. I hate quarters. Anybody that's listening right now, if you ever come interview with me as a defensive coordinator and you tell me you're going to run quarters, I'm going to tell you to write me an if-then statement on every route that an offense could potentially run, because I just personally never liked it. And I've been in every Narduzzi talk. I've listened to every clinic talk you could ever think of, but you'll never convince me that I'll ever be on a team that's good enough to run quarters to some of the offensive concepts that come up, because I don't like starting conversations with scheme with, well, if he does this, then he does that. If he does this, then he does that. I like to be able to give clean, concise rules. So it don't matter what formation he lines up in, this is your job. This is the job. This is the read. So I hate quarters. I'm sorry if you're a quarters guy out there. If you ever want to come clinic, we're in Newport News. Come visit with me. Come clinic with me. I'd love to sit down and listen to you. But that's just me. So defensively, I really enjoy teams that man up, play a lot of press coverage, and that's what I like to watch.
Okay. Do you guys run a lot of cover 3? Because that's what we like.
Yeah, so we base our early stuff. Our early stuff is out of cover 3, but really it's going to be dictated on what type of hogs we got. I mean, we got a dog that can play man, and if we can put him out on an island, he'll follow the single receiver all game. You got to give us a formation where you're going to get him out of man if you got a receiver you want to get the ball to. So really, it's dictated by what the offense likes. When I first came out, kind of my most successful years, we were heavy cover 2 team, and we'll kind of get back. We get to that. And that's kind of where my roots lie. I was a heavy cover 2 D coordinator, but as I want to bring a lot more pressure, we became a 3-man team. So we probably last season, probably about 30% of our snaps were in cover 3.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and talk big picture with college football. Now we can talk, any conference. You can talk D3, D2, the big stuff like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts? What are your own personal thoughts on how the different conferences are handling this pandemic?
This is hard. It's unprecedented. I personally, I don't think that there's no right or wrong answer to this. I can just tell you that when I sat down with my athletic director and we made the decision to push the season to the spring, to cancel for the fall, it was the right decision for the Apprentice School, because our guys are, we work amongst 25,000 people, and at the end of the day, what we do is important to the national security of the country. So I thought that trumped us trying to go out and find a college football schedule as teams started to cancel. I think at the FBS level, I personally think that they've done a great job. I mean, the product's been pretty good for the most part. And you hear about, most teams are going through and being successful with their testing, their protocol. I think that they've done a hell of a job with all of that. I also understand that for smaller schools, you're talking D3, you're talking D2, even some FCS schools, they don't have the resources to pay for multiple tests a month. I mean, it's an expensive problem to have. I don't think anybody really goes back and they look at how much does it cost to test a team of 85 and 25 coaches and 15 support staff and 10 academic advisors. It's an expensive venture. And so you can't fault any schools that pulled out. Now, when you talk about what the Big Ten's done, that's where I say to myself, okay, Big Ten's got money. I hate to see this flip-flop. Let's make a decision. Let's not make a decision. Let's change it. Oh, we could be ready in 2 weeks. We could do that. That, to me, I think is worse for the young men than making the decision and sticking with it. What I said, because here was my biggest fear, Darrin. This is my biggest fear was if we started camp and we got rolling and everything was going and we were 24 hours from playing a football game and they say, oh, they can't play because they got a positive test, or you can't play because you got a positive test. I think for a young man, that's worse than spending time processing not playing. Just mentally for somebody that's 18 to 22 years old, I feel like that's worse. So what's happening in the Big Ten where it's like, okay, well, maybe we're not going to play. Okay, well, let's play. Let's try to look. That to me is worse. I feel like whatever decision you make, you got to stick with it, because at this point, there hasn't been very much new research that will make you say everything needs to change back over. So I'm on the side of safety. I feel like whatever we can do. At the end of the day, football is a game. I love it. It puts food on my table. It puts clothes on the backs of my kids. But it's a game. And me personally, especially when they started talking about potential long-term effects, and for everybody out there that's saying, Coach Davis, you don't know what you're talking about, you're right, but neither do you. Until we know, we don't know. So me personally, as a man who still gets invited to weddings, still, I just went and seen 3 of my guys who were down at the beach who I hadn't coached since 2012. Got an opportunity to spend some time with them. If you know that you're going to be a part of their lives after this, I didn't want to put anybody at risk where I would be going to their wedding and they say, oh, I got some type of chest condition. I got some type of condition from playing football when I was at the Apprentice School because I caught COVID. There's just too many unknowns. So I understand that. Now, again, at the larger levels, I feel like they have mechanisms in place that can really take care of you, that can really get you in a situation where you can feel a whole lot more comfortable about getting on a bus, about getting on a plane, about going to a hotel. They can test multiple times a week. And I think the product has been good. I think it's been good for the country. We need football. Don't get it twisted. We need football. The country needs football. High school kids need football. College kids need football. We need that rallying cry right now with everything that's going on in our country. But I also want it to be as safe as possible. I've enjoyed all of the games that I've watched. Once you and I get off, I'm going to go sit down and watch Navy. So it's been a great thing to have football back on TV and to be a part of that and to get to see it. But I also feel like for smaller schools who don't have the resources, who don't have the manpower to have a facility deep clean 6 times a day, I understand. I 100% understand. And it's tough. I mean, is it going to affect us? 100%. But I also know me personally, just how I live and how I conduct myself, it would have really hurt if somebody I coached went home and got somebody sick. And again, this was early before we knew asymptomatic, symptomatic, all of the new research. If somebody I knew went home, if Johnny's dad died of COVID because Johnny was the carrier, I don't know if I could have been able to handle that as a football coach just for the game of football. It's supposed to enhance life, not take it away. So that part of it really bothered me. And I personally can't wait till we all get back to normal. Playing in the spring is a scary venture. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. Who knows? Playing 20 games in a calendar year, nobody's ever done that before. We don't know if it's safe. We don't know if it's feasible. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that goes into putting on 10 home games in 10 months. So, I mean, it's going to be crazy. I think I'm glad that there's a lot of schools that have just been fluid. Let's figure it out. Let's take some time. I personally appreciate that with everybody on our schedule from last season. We had a really good schedule in place. We were going to go play your alma mater for their homecoming. We had that in place. We were going to go play 2 Division II schools. We were really excited about potentially the schedule we had, but I'm also excited about our leadership stepping up and making a decision that I personally think was right, even though I miss football. I want to be out coaching. I also understand what it is we're up against, and it's unprecedented times.
Yeah, that sounds like it comes from your people first approach there too.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Now, I know as a college coach, you probably don't have a whole lot of time on a regular season to sit back and watch other teams play, but are there any other because we mostly talk college football on the podcast. Hopefully we'll start talking about pros eventually, but are there any college teams that you really root for or that you really pull for? And then at the same time, are there any of like the bigger school coaches that you find as like an inspiration?
Absolutely. So my team growing up, and it's going to be forever. I'm going to forever be a huge Virginia Tech Hokie fan. Even though I'm a Liberty grad now, Liberty's FBS now. So I've been told, you can't still be a Hokie fan now that Liberty is FBS and they're going to be playing each other. But, I grew up in the Bud Foster, that was the guy. So I was, Frank Beamer could be the president in my eyes. I mean, he was a do no wrong type of guy. He was Frank Beamer. So I grew up in the, Virginia Tech is everything and UVA's not. That's kind of, I grew up in Virginia. That you picked a side pretty early, and I've been Virginia Tech my whole life. That's my team. Obviously, I root for Liberty. I root for James Franklin. He's my LeBron James, the coaching. Wherever he goes, I'm gonna be a big fan of. At the lower levels, I've gotten really interested in Salisbury football. Sherman Wood, somebody who I look up to. He's going into his 18th year at Salisbury University, something like that. He's really built the legacy for himself. So I'll follow those teams. Let me think. Who else? I got a lot of teams that when I check, Navy, yeah. Ken Niumatalolo, I make sure I check in on what his program is doing. Just certain style points. Mike Leach. I mean, you got to love Mike Leach and what he stands for in the game of college football because, again, I want to aspirationally, you talk about who you want to be like. Man, I would love to be able to live my life like Mike Leach and still be taken seriously as a college football coach. That'd be awesome. So you talk about aspirations, that's what it would be. But again, my biggest inspiration, my inspiration's Bud Foster. I'm very, very sad to see him retire last year. I made sure if Virginia Tech was playing on TV, it was going to get DVR, and I was going to watch that game. And I've downloaded as much Virginia Tech football film as I possibly can. And then obviously James Franklin, like I said, he's huge inspiration to me. And this is really, really small piece of the glimpse of, like we were talking about, when he said last year during the game with Michigan, and they had that still screenshot where he said, hey, I want to be the first black head football coach in FBS to win a national championship. I was like, oof. Like, I was so inspired by that, because you think about it. Here we are in 2020. We haven't had one yet in FBS. So that was, man, what an amazing goal to aspire to. So to me, that gave me the gall to dream bigger. I said, man, my dreams right now are small. Like, we talk about, I'm trying to go undefeated. I want to win a cup. Like, those dreams are small in comparison to, hey, I want to be my mission. I want to open the door for others because I want to be the first FBS head football coach that's an African-American to win the national championship. That really sat with me. And I'm always remember that screenshot, that moment. I saved it on my phone. It was my screensaver for a while. I mean, that moment was inspiring to me. So I'm sure he doesn't know how inspiring that was to a lot of legion of young coaches. And I don't consider myself young by no stretch. You see all the gray. But the legion of young coaches, I feel like that did a lot morale-wise, that we still have people that are thinking that big.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. So, last question. It's going to be an interesting one. So, why the Apprentice School? So, imagine, um, kind of like how you recruit. How do you sell your program to your parents? How do you sell it to the recruits? And then even to like potential coaches. Hypothetically, if I was a coach that you wanted to hire, how would you try to sell that program to me?
Gotcha. So the great part about the Apprentice School for me, and what's been the most amazing thing for me, is seeing the 4-year close on each one of these young men. Again, I'm going into year 3, but I've got guys that are going into their 4th year who have already bought homes. They've moved their parents into homes. So when you talk about the traditional college experience, okay, normally and I give this to recruits directly. I say, okay, let's say you go to Old Dominion University. Okay, you're a student there at Old Dominion and you got an 8 o'clock class. And you show up at 8:45, you sign the book and you leave. What's going to happen to you at Old Dominion? If you're just a student, what's going to happen to you, Darrin?
You're going to get kicked out or
Maybe,
drop out. Yeah.
maybe at some point you'll probably drop
Yeah.
out, but the teacher is not going to care. Like at the end of the day, you're just another number. You pay their salary. So my job is to grade you, is not to raise you.
Mhm.
So at our place, the difference is this. Our guys, that's freshmen, our freshmen that started classes 2 weeks ago, they're making $18.32 an hour to go to class and be the best they can be in class and on the job site. And I tell people all the time, unless you're going to play this game for 15, 20 years, at some point you're going to have to get a job. I got a former NFL on my staff, Big E. The great thing about him is he had an opportunity. He played in the Super Bowl. He had 7 years in the league. But at the end of his 7 years, when he was done, he retired. He had to get a job. He had to figure out something to do. So, but if you have guys who are trying to figure out and navigate what it is and what's important to them, income's going to always be important. So I talk to guys like I'm sure you had a great experience at Bridgewater. I personally look up to Coach Clark. I think he's one of the best in the business, and he's somebody I aspire to have a career even close to similar to. But I tell them all the time, okay, if it comes down to the Apprentice School in Bridgewater, I ask them, have you had the hard conversation with your parents yet to ask, how much can we afford to pay for school? That's a tough conversation for any 18-year-old to ask. When it comes to the Apprentice School, that number can be 0 and you can still set a great life for yourself. So when I talk to students, I say, hey, what's the most important thing? Why do you want to go to college? And they say, I want to go to college to get a great job. And I say, you want to get a great job to do what? I want to make money. I want to start a family. Okay. So if I tell you, you give me 4 years, your 4th year, you're going to make $65,000. You're going to get educated, completely debt-free, get an opportunity to play college football all over the country. And you're going to have a coaching staff that's really going to love on you and care about you and cultivate you. That's the selling point for us. Like we tell our guys, at the end of the day, our school doesn't have a financial aid department. So I don't care what your EFC is. If you haven't filled out the FAFSA, it's not a big deal. We're not like some of the schools we compete against. We can't take an unlimited number of student athletes. And I ask people all the time, I'm going to ask you this, Darrin, see if you know, because this is always the one that kicks it all back. What is the Apprentice School acceptance rate? Do you had any idea? If you had a guess, what would you guess?
I don't know, 100%.
100%. Wow, that's terrible, Darrin. We are 6% acceptance rate.
Okay.
So 6 out of every 100 applicants. That puts us in the same vein as Harvard, Yale, Princeton. So when people say, oh, it's a trade school, it's part trade, part business, part engineering. I tell them, Apprentice School is going to teach you how to manage businesses' 2 most important assets, people and money. That's why the Apprentice School was created. You can get raises every 90 days. You're going to have a 401k from the first day that you started. And as a senior, while you're playing college football, you're going to get an opportunity to make $65,000. And that's the minimum. I tell them all the time, we talk about guarantees. What's the guarantee? My assistant head football coach, Vince Brown, he's got the best line, and I steal it all the time, but I always got to credit him. Don't just go, when you go on your visit, don't just go to put the jersey on and take the picture. That's the cool thing. We do it too. But what are you going to get from that degree? What is it going to mean for you? What is it going to do for you? What's the alumni association going to do? What's the job placement rate? What's the typical finances of somebody 10 years out? Don't just go to college to put on the jersey. Figure out what you're going to get out of it. And our situation allows them to make sure they're going to make $246,000 over 4 years in cash and benefits directly to them. They never pay a dollar for any books, materials, or fees, and they're going to get paid whether they're at work or in the classroom. Plus, they have options to obtain their bachelor's degree. So, I mean, it's a pretty good package to sell to students. When it comes to parents, that's easy. I've not had a parent in the room yet. The only thing they say is, I don't know if my son is mature enough to handle this. And I tell them most 18-year-olds are not. But this is just as far as the rigor of the classes being 10 weeks and waking up early, you get in shape for that just like you would as a military person. Eventually, you do it enough, your body just gets used to it. The first week is miserable. I've been at home all summer, hanging out, chilling, staying up till 2:30, playing PlayStation, FaceTiming my girlfriend. Now I got to get up at 6 o'clock and be where I need to be at 7 o'clock, whether it be work or class. So that's the only part of it to parents and recruits. That's potential coaches. The great thing they like about our place, and I love it and hate it because I miss some of it, the class checks, we don't have them. Lunch checks, we don't have them. Breakfast checks, we don't have them. There's some things that go along with just because of the daily schedule. I know where my guys are going to be at from 7 to 3 o'clock every day. I don't have to go chase them. I don't have to go look for them. I don't have to go chase them to hunt them down. And when they come out to practice, they're hungry to get the football. Some days they're more tired than others, but they're hungry to get an opportunity to play football. And, as a coach, as a potential coach, you get the biggest selling point is I'm going to give you an opportunity to run your room. I'm going to be I like to say I'm hands off, but fingers on. So I'm going to be involved in what's happening and what you're doing. But once we get to a point where I trust you and I know what's coming, I'm hands and fingers off. You're going to get an opportunity to run your room, and we're going to discuss things, and we're going to make sure that all of the nuances fit, but you're going to get an opportunity to get the type of experience that comes with running your room. And one of the first things I did when I got here is I made sure that our assistant coach salaries were up to par with some of the guys in the ODAC. That was important to me. And, we're really, really in the process of making it into a good place to be. We were lagging behind a lot of programs for a long time. So like I said, I'm in year 3. I feel like we're just getting to a point of stability. So we were kind of building a new foundation, and then we got a stability. But the Apprentice School is an amazing opportunity for the right candidate. You get a quality degree at a place where you're never going to pay a dime for education. That just doesn't happen. And I like to tell our guys, you're going to make $732 before taxes as a freshman every week. And that you talk about guarantees. What can I guarantee you? I can guarantee you after your first week, you never ask your mom for another dollar. If you do it right, you get paid every week. So that's why the Apprentice School is. That's why we've been able to sell. You've seen it. Our social media imprint's gotten pretty big to where, like you say, 10 years ago, if you were from Virginia, I'm from Virginia. I grew up in Lynchburg. I never heard of the place either till we played against them. So you talk about, just the branding of it. We've done a hell of a job with that. And that's one of those things that I don't think the Apprentice School could put a dollar amount on for what we've been able to do in the branding department. But that's just kind of what we've been able to bring to the table.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I liked all that. And so, final thoughts. Not a lot of coaches, especially here in Virginia and Maryland, have a whole lot of positives right now. A lot of people are missing football, some a little too much. Do you have any final thoughts or any kind of words of wisdom for those guys out there?
Absolutely. Speaking from the bottom of my heart, guys, I miss football. I miss the camaraderie of it. But I always take a step back, and it brings me back to my window of opportunity to coach is not closing every day. Our student athletes, your student athletes, their window of opportunity to play, it's only getting smaller. And we remember what that was like. So while we can be upset, we can yell, we can vent, we can be frustrated, our first and most important job is dedicating our time and ourselves to our student athletes. And if you can't get past the pity party of you not having an opportunity to coach, then you're in the wrong profession. And I'm going to just say it as bluntly and as honestly as I can. I agree with some people who say, oh, well, some people, their only reason for going to school is because they get to play football. But if you as a coach don't reach that student, what are we doing? Okay? And that is the most important thing. I want to make sure that guys understand that as bad as you have it, you got student athletes that are going through it even worse. That same student that you picked up and you dropped off and you bought McDonald's for and all of the things that you did while he was playing for you, you need to double down on those things while he's not playing for you. Be the inspiration, be the light that gets them to the end of the tunnel. Tell them, hey, I don't know if you're ever going to play another high school football game. I don't know if you're ever going to play another college football game, but I want your life to have fulfillment and a purpose outside of that. And if I can help with that, that's the job. That's what we get paid for. It's not the wins and the losses and the X's and O's. That's what keeps you in the business. Remember why you got into the business. Remember that you got to continue to cultivate those relationships and don't have a pity party for yourself, because at the end of the day, your window of opportunity to coach is wide as I don't know what. Only you and God can dictate how many more seasons you're going to be healthy enough to coach this game. But I promise you it's a lot more than those student athletes are going to have to play. So you got to pour into them, wrap your arms around them, love on them, and make sure that you make it about them and not about us. And that I'll get off my high horse on that one, Darrin, but that's my piece. I feel like too many coaches have taken this as a personal undertaking to them. And, it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with them, and their window is always closing. Ours could potentially be opening. You could be going to a better place. You could be doing a lot of better things. But our student athletes, their window is closing. And, also take this time to try to pour into some of these young kids you see throwing the ball around your high school games. You see some guys outside throwing the ball around, go out, throw the ball with them. Spend some time cultivating the game in another way so that we leave it better than we found it. So the next time a pandemic comes up or something like this happens that interrupts our normal schedule of things, we're not worried about having numbers when we get back. Right now, where everybody's concerned about having numbers, right? Everybody's like, I don't know what's going to happen with my middle school program. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, spend some time cultivating your programs, all of them. Go spend some time throwing the ball with some young kids. Get back to some family time. And I personally, I haven't slept good in 2 weeks because I'm used to not sleeping during this time of year. But on the bright side, I found some new time to really be with my family, spend some time with my parents, and really use this time to pour into people, because that's the job. If you're a coach, pour into people. Find another way to get involved and get invested in somewhere where people need you. Get on the phone with your guys, get on FaceTime with your guys, play video games with your guys, do whatever it takes to build that deeper connection and be an inspiration to the next generation.
Well, thank you, Coach Davis. It's been an honor to have you on tonight. Thank
I
you so
appreciate
very
it.
much. Well, this has been the Armchair Coaching Podcast, and this is Coach Sheffer signing off.